Okay, this is a review for the Part 1 test. Um, Mostly what I covered when I review is just reading out the definitions that's located in the glossary of your book. There was, let's see, I think it's radial. Maybe I have it on here. Yes, so radial balance, however, is on page 144, and that definition is a balance achieved when all elements in a work are equestrian from a central point and repeat in a symmetrical way from side to side and top to bottom. And that was the only one that's not in your glossary. So if you look up each of these vocabulary words in your glossary and write the definition, then you'll be doing well. But I do know that some of you may see that the definitions are really long. So in this, I have the definitions that I would be using on the test, and so this is what I would read out. So I'm just going to read these to you, and then we're going to discuss the images in the test layout. Composition, the overall design or organization of a work. Contrast, a drastic difference between such elements as color or value when presented together. Line, a mark or implied mark between two endpoints. Shape, a two-dimensional area, the boundaries of which are defined by lines or suggested by changes in color or value. Two-dimensional, having height and width. Form, an object that can be defined in three dimensions, height, width, and depth. Mass, a volume that has or gives the illusion of having weight, density, and bulk. Texture, the surface quality of a work, for example, fine or coarse. Three-dimensional, having height, width, and depth. Volume, the space filled or enclosed by a three-dimensional figure or object. Background, the part of a work depicted furthest from the viewer's space, often behind the main subject matter. Foreground, the part of a work depicted as nearest to the viewer. Foreshortening, a perspective technique that depicts a form at a very oblique, often dramatic angle to the viewer in order to show depth. Linear perspective, a system of using converging imaginary sightlines to create the illusion of depth. Relative placement, the arrangement of shapes or lines to form a visual relationship to each other in a design. Space, the distance between identifiable points or planes. Value, the lightness or darkness of a plane or area. Analogous, colors adjacent to each other on the color wheel. Complementary, colors that are opposite of one another on the color wheel. Monochromatic, having one or more values in a color. Primary, three basic colors from which all others are derived. Motion, the effect of changing placement in time. Asymmetrical, a type of design in which balance is achieved by elements that contrast and complement one another without being the same on either side of an axis. Balance, a principle of art in which elements are used to create symmetrical or asymmetrical sense of visual weight. Radial, a balance achieved when all elements in a work are equestrian from a central point and repeat in a symmetrical way from side to side and top to bottom. Symmetrical, the correspondence in size, form, and arrangement of items on opposite sides of a plane, line, or point that creates direct visual balance. Unity, the imposition of order and harmony. Variety, the diversity of different ideas, medias, and elements in a work. The golden section, a unique ratio of a line divided into two parts, so that A plus B is to A as A is to B. The result is an irrational number. Proportion, the relationship in size between work's individual parts and the whole. Scale, the size of an object or an artwork relative to another object or artwork or to a system of measurement. Emphasis, the principle of drawing attention to a particular content within a work. Focal point, the center of interest or activity in a work of art, often drawing the viewer's attention to the most important element. Subordination, the opposite of emphasis. It draws our attention away from a particular area of work. Motif, a design or color repeated as a unit in a pattern, an arrangement of predictable repeated elements. Rhythm, the regular ordered repetition of elements in the work. Okay, so now let's talk about the images. So for example, for contrast, you have the image of obey. For line, Woodstock Road. For shape, you have baby blocks. For form, you have cube. For mass, you have the colossal heads. For texture, you have Cloudgate. For volume, you have Ghost Rider. For foreshortening, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. For linear perspective, a summer shower. For space, the pastoral. For value, study for La Source. For analogous is the boating party. Complementary is Twilight in the Wilderness. Monochromatic is Picasso and Braque. For motion, it's the sculpture of Apollo and Daphne. Now this one, if you'll remember, I had accidentally swapped these two artworks. So the correct artwork for the asymmetrical balance is the 6 persimmons. For radial balance, it's the mandala. For symmetrical balance, it's Lu Ding, which is a vase. For unity, it's nature mort à la Botticelli. For variety, it's monogram. For 1.7, let's see, golden section is the Parthenon. Proportion is the figure of Olney. Scale is the match cover. Emphasis is starlight. Focal point is the coronation of the Virgin Mary. Subordination is the landscape with the fall of Christ. And for motif, it's the hookah vase, which I really think it's supposed to say vase. I'm going to say that because I'm pretty sure of that. Pattern is the blue room painting, and rhythm is hunters in the snow. So you will have these images that are listed, that are italicized in color on your test, and then you will have A, B, or C, or D to choose from to identify which vocab word goes with that image. So if you see the painting of the coronation of the Virgin Mary, I might say, is it A, emphasis, B, focal point, C, subordination, D, motif. And you would have to identify which of the four was used in your book and in the study guide here for this artwork. For your vocabulary, you will have the definitions I just read to you, and then you'll have A, B, C, or D as well. And I think that's pretty much it as far as the test goes.